I am a huge fan of The Last of Us. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time, and it's an incredibly difficult task to write something as good as that game no matter what medium. It's why I had my doubts about the show. I still do with Season 3, even after Craig Mazin delivered an incredible Season 1. But now that the second season is out and adapting one of the most controversial stories in video game history, one thought naturally came to mind.
I gotta figure out how to make money on this thing. It's simply too good.
In all seriousness though, now that I have a better handle on making content and The Last of Us is more relevant than ever, I can't imagine better circumstances to finally getting around to reviewing one of the biggest Goober games of the PlayStation brand. In fact, it's such a Goober game, so popular and influential, people legitimately hate this game for being one of the pioneers in the narrative action genre. So let's see if it's really worth all that hype and hatred in this spoiler review. When I first played this game, I was pretty skeptical. Zombies have been played out to no end. They've been a mainstay in pop culture since the late 60s, and it's gotten to the point that it's actively tiring to see them in another franchise. It is incredibly difficult to do anything original in the zombie genre. In fact, originality is a mirage in the desert of zombie franchises. And what I favor above all in life is just that, originality. Which is why I'm now sponsored by Raid Shadow. Zombie franchises themselves are like zombies, replicable, replaceable, and functionally identical in this horde of IP. But what sets The Last of Us apart from this horde is the way their infected originated and function. Using the real-life cordyceps fungus as a basis for this apocalypse not only establishes credible world building and storytelling, but also provides new gameplay encounters. Instead of having two different types of enemies, survivors and infected, you now have new types of infected, like those that require absolute stealth, those that can only be defeated head-on, the kind that can be defeated in either way, and a new subset that uses stealth against you. And they do that, again, in a credible way. It's not that these are all different types of mutations, it's that they're all stages in the mostly linear life cycle of infected, perfectly stitching together gameplay and narrative. My only problem here is that there's none of that harmony when it comes to the spores. In the story, it's the contact with the spores that really sells Joel on the idea that this girl is immune. But in the gameplay, it doesn't even affect who you fight in those set pieces. Its only change is cosmetic, and that's whether or not you and your enemies are wearing gas masks. You can't argue they come into play with the bloater's projectiles, but that doesn't seem to really infect people as much as it seems acidic, at least looking at it through a gameplay lens. Another way the story benefits the gameplay though is how action happens very quickly, but it still takes a while to get into the action. Even having played this game plenty of times before and knowing what to do and what was gonna happen, it still took me 28 minutes to get to the tutorial zombie fight, 40 minutes to get to the tutorial human fight, and 50 minutes to get to the first actual combat encounter of the game. And if you're someone who likes to do more than push the analog stick when you play video games, that sounds like hell, but frankly, you probably won't even notice until your second playthrough when you skip through all the cutscenes because of how hectic and emotionally impactful the opening is and how dire the aftermath is. It's like a magic trick. It distracts you with something captivating so it can do what it needs to do, that being implement the tutorial and build the setting so you can have the best experience possible. And that world building is fantastic. Not only are things like the tilted buildings and overgrown architecture beautiful backdrops on their own, but actually getting to interact with them and have gameplay set there is such a great addition. There aren't many missed opportunities when you interact with them either, with things like climbing around on an old rickety window washing platform, environmental puzzle solving with the pallets and ladders, Ellie assisting you with a rifle from the balcony, using a snowstorm for cover like the sandstorm in Uncharted 3, being on both sides of a sniper rifle scope, hanging upside down and shooting off infected from a trap, cars essentially being useless except as cover, and then so when you finally do get a truck up and running, you need to constantly swap between pushing it and defending it. And after playing through Silent Hill 2 and seeing it clearly there, I've really grown to appreciate how some games make it clear to the player where to go or what to do without making it too obvious. And Last of Us is an expert in that regard. You always know where to go or what to do, with the one exception being Davidstown, which feels intentional, as you're so outgunned and outnumbered in someone else's home field that they know like the back of their hand. Just like the protagonist, you're lost here. The only missed opportunity that stuck out like a sore thumb to me was the spotlight set piece. It was cool and all, but the hunters you're sneaking up on start shooting clickers behind you, and I thought it would have been a great idea for you to get pinched between infected and hunters and have to fight your way out of it. But Carter, that sounds like a kick in the doing doing. Why would you possibly want that? Well, nothing good can happen in The Last of Us, not even to the player. Naughty Dog developed this game because they didn't think enough young people got stomach ulcers in this world. The movement feels like you're glued to the floor. Mobility is lacking but necessary. You have to use the listening mechanic to plan your route because stealth is not an option. You are the mole in Whack-A-Mole. Joel Mole, Whack-a-Joel. Success in this gameplay hinges on your ability to shake off the enemy and either stealth kill someone or pop up where they don't see you, shoot them, and then lose them again. This is the first mole-type game, and when I first played it, I legitimately stopped my play sessions because the gameplay made me too fatigued to keep going. I wanted to be at a larger disadvantage in the spotlight section because that's what makes the gameplay fun, strategically weaseling your way out of situations where the odds are stacked against you. It can be overdone. When playing this for review on moderate difficulty and getting through winter, the high stress that came with the seemingly impossible task of fighting a bloater in an area this small made it incredibly obvious just how easy it is to kite these things. But for every time the perceived difficulty reveals how easy it is, there's genuinely overwhelming segments like the entirety of winter where you have a new, weaker moveset fighting people twice your size. You need every resource you pick up. I'm pretty sure humans see your flashlight. There are no suppressors. Your only stealth range option is arrows, which you can't craft. Your weapon sways. Each gun has a terrible rate of fire. There are so many limitations that actually help the gameplay. And like with the spotlight, I think it would have been a great idea to have a pitch black set piece with FEDRA where you need to carefully use your flashlight to see, but other humans can see it too, because it would be another limitation that would add to the grunchiness and groundedness of this gameplay. That's why Grounded is such a fun game mode. Bullets are a luxury and you're truly immersed in the life of a survivor in this apocalypse. And it's because of that survival that the story can be so impactful. Even after everything you've had to face, you're here. Joel is still here. He seems unstoppable, which only adds to the shock and fear when he lands on that rebar and his mortality is put into question. Same with how the gameplay tells you Ellie's got something on her mind when at the end of the game, Ellie doesn't go with the routine you've established time and time again where you go to boost her up. Not only does this game have great gameplay though, it has great graphics and always has. It was a PS3 game that could have been a PS4 game, so it got remastered, which was really just a port, which then got remade, which was really just a remaster even though it was rebuilt from the ground up, which I'm playing now, which then got bundled in with The Last of Us 2, which was a PS4 game that could have been a PS5 game, so it got remastered, which was really just a port. If only Naughty Dog was as careful with their resources as our protagonist. Okay, I know this is off topic, but this goes out to one of my friends who I hate. Listen, bucko, these two make sense. The first game benefits from looking like the latest game that came out a year prior, and this one needed to be on PS4. It just shouldn't have been called a remaster. This... yeah, I can't defend this. To be fair, this remake did inspire Sony's streak of remastering anything, but this game is so beautiful that I'd gladly take it even if it caused 1,000 Horizon remasters. It has great use of haptic feedback with your environments, like feeling rain hit you, and great use of adaptive triggers when pulling the bow. The sound design is only rivaled by games like Red Dead 2 with how guns crack instead of bang and snow crunching under your feet. Watch this! I stepped on a branch and the deer reacted to it. Characters react when you shine a flashlight in their eyes. You smack the controller to fix your flashlight, your guns physically change when you upgrade them. Ellie even comments on it.
Nice. You got the scope working.
It makes me sad how good this game is, literally. Sarah's acting, screaming, and the game being so advanced you see a teardrop roll down her cheek from her lifeless eyes makes the scene pack such a punch. And the music will literally make me sad when I'm just sitting there doing nothing. They even upgraded little details, like how you can see a lot of Joel's character in his house. The secret tunnel is way less obvious this time around. And most importantly, as a kid in 2013, nothing was cooler than a shark tooth necklace. My only problems with this game technically are technical. Like, yeah, that's technically an issue, but it's easy to overlook. Like, there's this weird effect when enemies' eyes close when you stealth kill them, where the top of their eyelids are really dark sometimes. That or the eyes just completely stop rendering. You fight the camera a bit in the gameplay, and like, here, it would have been more realistic if the infected kept banging on the door while you were in the room. AnyAustin a while back uploaded a fantastic video about the Modern Warfare mission Clean House, and he brings up in it that unlike that mission, most environments and buildings in video games are actually like 30% bigger than they are in real life, so the game doesn't feel as claustrophobic. And that was news to me. I had never noticed that in my entire life, except for exactly one time, and it was The Last of Us. No door is that wide. Again, all of these problems are nitpicky. They're really easy to gloss over and outshined by how beautiful this game really is. I just thought it was worth bringing up. But like I mentioned, even though seeing a tear roll out of a little girl's eyes as the life slowly leaves them would probably be enough to choke up just about anyone, what makes this scene and the whole game effective is the acting and character writing. This game opens up with the little girl waking up when her single dad comes home late at night. He's stressed, worked late, has problems in his life, and is doing it for her. Then we see she loves her dad enough to stay up late to give him his birthday present on time, cares enough to notice his watch is broken and scramble together enough money to get it fixed, and she's funny. Their circumstances might not be the best, but they're making ends meet and making sacrifices for each other. They're flawed, they're human. We know who they are, what their situation is, and relate to them in like, what, 5 minutes? Then it hits the fan. Joel and Tommy are trying to get everyone to safety, and you hold this little injured girl in your arms as you run from the dead, only for her fate to be sealed by the living. His last gift from her, the symbol of their love for each other, is cracked in the same moment their bond is taken from them. He tries to save her, puts pressure on her wound, and in the second it takes for him to look back to his brother for help, she's gone. Fast forward an hour and what happens?
Your watch is broken.
Ah! This game puts you right in the shoes of Joel. You obviously can't feel as much pain as he does in this moment, but over the course of an hour, you cry for a character, see how bleak the world is, and kill people yourself, becoming jaded to that pain, only for that scab to be picked at again. And not only does this immediately invest the player, but the opening credits build on that world. They could have been generic and said millions around the world are dead, but we still wouldn't care. That is a statistic in a fictional world. Now, The Last of Us shows us how tragic just one of those deaths is to just the people around them, and then tells you in the news broadcast and the credits that that pain you just went through was amplified and felt millions of times over around the world. And that is the opening of this game. That is the impact of the writing of a character that has 15 minutes of screen time. Imagine how long this video would be if I analyzed every single character in this 12-hour game. And it might actually be easier to knock it out of the park in a quarter of an hour, but no. They write these characters consistently, whether it be how Ellie panics both times she's about to be checked for infection, or when Henry takes his own life after his little brother dies and he's been hard on him throughout the game. It's all your fault, and he's not talking to the guy he's pointing the gun at. Whether Sam makes it or not, he blames himself. What makes these characters special too is the nuance. So many games try to force the player to feel a certain way about a character by making their personalities blatant instead of letting them show through naturally. And Naughty Dog respects the audience by letting them pick it up on their own. It's not so subtle that Bill is gay, but that doesn't really affect him as a character. What's subtle is how he felt about Frank and that mixture of love and hatred, sometimes with love showing through the hatred.
He's the only idiot that would wear a shirt like that.
It's why I can't really decide if I like the show's depiction of their relationship more or not. I feel like their bottle episode was a better story on its own, but you lose some of that subtle emotional complication, and the game feels more realistically tragic for the world and better flows with the larger narrative. What I can absolutely say I prefer the game over the show for is how they handle Joel and Tess's relationship. Keeping their relationship ambiguous puts us in relatively the same shoes they're in, as it seems more of like a situationship where they're not too sure either. All of their love for each other is in the little things that could be interpreted either way, like Joel helping to clean her up after she was attacked. It's that little line, "there's gotta be enough here," that puts it into perspective where they're a good team and there's some interest there, but either Joel or both of them are always too jaded and hopeless to try and make anything of it. The show just slightly overdoes it by having Tess literally crawl into bed with him, but you can't win them all. Her subtlety shows after she's bit too, where she keeps rushing Joel to pick up the pace so they can get Ellie to the Fireflies, and she can see it through that a cure is made. One more big case of subtlety I appreciate that the show goes a little overboard with is David. David's case is a little touchy, so I'm gonna dance around it a bit, but the way he acts around Ellie is very off-putting, making you fear the worst, but just enough to not outright confirm it. It's why he's one of my favorite characters in the game. Do I like him? No. Do I like it when people are the thing he might be? Hell no. But I like him in the same way I like Micah Bell, where I like how well written he is and how he's not just straight unlikable because he's a villain. You can't really tell if he's being weird because he's weird, or because he's trying to calm down a scared 14-year-old that has a gun pointed at him. He buys your trust by having another weapon the whole time you first meet him, but never using it. It's not certain whether her being David's newest pet is the thing you hope it isn't, or if he's trying to mentor a successor for town leadership. He's a bad guy with good intentions. He wants to kill Joel, but wants to save Ellie. It's consistent with how he protects her before the reveal because he doesn't blame her. When we are in need, he shall provide. He's taken a Bible verse written on a banner in the restaurant and believes the sin he's committing is a scriptural solution in this circumstance. He so desperately wants to keep everyone alive and fed that he's resorted to cannibalism. And then in the show he says, "Hey Ellie, that thing the audience is afraid I'm gonna do to you? I'm gonna do it, which completely bulldozes that subtlety which was even there in his end. She killed his right-hand man, so perverted or not, he wants to kill her, keeping that mystery and fear of whether or not he is the monster we think he is. I will tell you one thing the show does better in the story is taking this line.
They said it's just people in the city. We're good.
Didn't Jimmy work in the city?
And expanding upon it when it also expands upon Sarah's story. It creates additional stress because she might be infected all because of an active love for her dad. It's like on Jackass where they splash someone with water so they lean into a punch. You're afraid she's infected only to get smacked in the face when she gets Swiss cheesed. But no matter what you're talking about, the plot points and storytelling in The Last of Us are brilliant. Like I said, the gameplay is so grungy and stressful that I'd get too fatigued to play the game and turn it off. But right when I turn the game off, I'd always think, damn, I might get right back on. I gotta see what happens next. Because the story is so good, and the plot of smuggling an immune girl to make a cure is so interesting that I thought it was gonna end faster than it did. It was the same thing as God of War, where the character writing is so captivating that by the time you reach the finish line, I thought the game was overrated, but pretty good. But then, no, the goalpost gets moved, and I will say, I like this a lot more. Fireflies getting murdered by the people that labeled them terrorists makes much more sense than climbing up the wrong mountain, then shattering the shortcut to the right mountain, especially when all the other things that set you back are from mythology you might not have heard of before, which makes it feel like the writers are just making shit up to pad out the length, like your son getting a tummy ache. But yeah, I could tell this game was gonna be great when I thought the story was good enough to end when I hadn't even gotten through the first chapter of the game. Speaking of, this game does separate its chapters into 4 seasons, but do not be fooled into thinking they're each a quarter of the full game. Summer is so long that when Sam and Henry die and you see the word fall on screen, you've forgotten that that's the narrative structure they're using. That flaw is not a big deal at all though. It serves a purpose because Summer needs to be that long, and we might as well get into the rest of my problems with the story because they all do minimal damage and serve a purpose. It can be a bit difficult to catch on to some things at times, like what the Fireflies are exactly. Why is that? Because the story respects the player too much to dump exposition on our heads. It keeps the story immersive and flowing by not having characters break that flow to explain something to someone else, and it trusts the audience to be smart enough to pick up on things through details and context clues. It's that nuance I was talking about. David's group being cannibals is a little much, especially since I've seen it before, but it makes sense in the setting, and it's a good threat that adds a ticking clock to saving Ellie without doing a disservice to the way they've written David. The only flaw I really can excuse is that there are better ways to separate Joel and Ellie that aren't outright lethal, because this... Yeah, he's 56 years old. That geezer's never walking again. It would have been great to see more Tommy. His dynamic with Joel and how realistic it is that even though they hated each other, after this long, they're happy to see each other again is really good. I wish he could have come with us, but again, nothing good can happen in The Last of Us. Sam and Henry die in a heart-wrenching and cruel way because nothing good can happen in The Last of Us. But the execution of it and their inclusion are very well done, and I appreciate that they prioritize their story fitting into the universe over a happy ending. But even if you don't look at the events that happen, just the way they do it, it is perfect for a video game. You find out Ellie is immune in a big scene, and in a movie or something, any distraction from that would feel forced, uneven, and too coincidental to be taken seriously. But here, they use the medium to their advantage by inserting a gameplay segment that makes sense in the universe, but brings the story to a stop so you can digest what her immunity truly means while you play. We are stressed after Joel gets impaled, and when we're worried about Ellie, they lighten the load a little by having Ellie jump at the bit for medicine, telling us Joel is okay but in rough condition. And that's one of my favorite scenes in this game, because after putting himself in danger to save Ellie's life time after time, we finally get to see what she is willing to do for Joel. Winter is the chapter where we get to see both sides of their relationship, and it's fully fleshed out. So much so that he calls her the same name he called his daughter, and by spring, whether they realize it or not, that father-daughter dynamic is in full effect. For me, it's a top 3 scene in this game, as their guards are completely down, and he comforts her as the camera pans around to the machete handle, showing us what she had to do to survive. And it's all with no audio because there's no words we can hear that will live up to that moment. It's a very special kind of scene where hearing the dialogue would only be a hurdle and muddy up the raw emotion conveyed. It goes back to Joel's past with Tommy. Joel says they did all those things to survive, and all Tommy says is it wasn't worth it, telling us so much in so little. And Joel being the one to comfort her after she did something that might not have been worth it is so impactful. And the reason why this relationship is one of the best written in just about ever is the pitfalls it goes through. He loses the closest person he's had in a while, and the only thing he can can take it out on, wrongfully so, is this little girl. He knows what it's like to be a father. He's mad she was put in a situation where she had to blow a guy's head smooth off. And when that anger gets the better of him, he's still too angry to apologize even when he gets called out on it. These are real, flawed characters. It's not a subtle story. We know where this is going. But because these characters grow on you, you want them to read the writing on the wall and be a family, which makes every wedge driven between them hurt all the more. And they're not stupid either, they see it too. Joel catches himself being a dad and snaps out of it. They naturally and expertly place this little scene where Tommy tries to give him his picture of Sarah back. And what does he say?
I'm good.
1, jackass. 2, it reminds the player that even though they're growing together, this pain is still real and raw to him to the point that he can't even stand to look at what he lost, perfectly framing what happens next.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
That might be my favorite line of dialogue in a video game. Not only does it hit Ellie with all she's been through, but it cuts deep when the main character pretty much looks you in the eye and says, yeah, it's not happening, bubby. I will say my one critique of this scene is what follows. They don't even spend a night in Jackson. During the ride back from the farm, he decides he'll take her, and in the next scene, they're literally talking about football. I know it's probably been weeks for them traveling to the next state on horseback, but it's literally within minutes for the player that these characters go from their biggest falling out to water cooler talk. But after making up and saving each other's lives, whether they're fully conscious of it or not, that's his daughter, that's her dad. To the point that Ellie's enough for it to be okay for him to remember Sarah. He would sacrifice the world for her, and that's exactly what he does. It's foreshadowed in Ellie's dream. She's on a crashing plane, people are screaming, she runs to the cockpit and there's no one there, and she tries to save everyone. But obviously she can't fly a plane and she wakes up right before the crash. She was born into an apocalypse. The world ended before she existed. She woke up in a world of screaming and pain, and somehow, some way, she's the one who can stop it. So she tries to, but she doesn't even know what the surgery entails. And even if she did, she's 14. I'm pretty sure kids need their parent or guardian to sign off on that stuff, and like, the world ended, protocol has been thrown out the window, but the reason we do things like that is because kids can't consent to something like that. They can't fully understand decisions like that. Believe me, I remember how much of a doofus 14-year-old me was. It's not that Ellie can't save the world. It's not that she can't land the plane. It's just she can't exactly wrap her head around it. And right before the deadline hits, where a choice has to be made, she wakes up. Before we get into the morality and ethics of what Joel did, let's talk about what he actually did and why he did it. This whole video, I've been talking about things that happen to these characters in their bleakest moments and how any semblance of hope is dashed from them. It's like Joel said, you need to keep finding things to fight for, something I can relate to. And at first, it was getting paid, then as they traveled, it was a cure, and eventually, it was his daughter. It's reflected in the giraffe scene, as well as the Capitol building scene it mirrors to a certain extent. Whether or not he knew it, Ellie was something as simple as a golden rooftop among tilted buildings, and later, she's the giraffes. He found beauty in disaster and cannot let that beauty die. After losing Sarah, he finally found something real to fight for, something that made surviving worth it. He's already had a daughter die in his arms once, and he is not going to let that happen again. It's sad that in this horrible world he lives in, it was a selfless act where he lost someone and a selfish act where he saved someone. But it was a selfish act nonetheless. He wiped out not just the Fireflies, but pretty much every generation to come before someone can finally make a cure. They're the villains of each other's stories. The Fireflies trying to sacrifice a little girl, and Joel sacrificing the world. Ellie says it can't be for nothing, and this whole game was for nothing for literally everybody except Joel. He even killed the woman who protected Ellie just to tie up any loose strings. No half measures. And frankly, I was on his side, because A, this is a video game, the consequences aren't real, and B, with how much I love Joel and Ellie, yeah, I'm not letting that happen. What I love about this ending too is that there's no wrong answer. Well, scratch that, there absolutely is a wrong answer. Siding with Joel or the Fireflies makes total sense and is correct. Siding with Joel because of the technicalities is so incredibly lame.
Dude, you actually can't make a vaccine for fungus, so they actually couldn't make a vaccine, dude. Makes no sense, dude. Ellie would have died for nothing.
Bubby, go ahead and take that shit to some other airspace because that will not fly here. The how and why don't matter if we didn't see them, even if they don't make sense. It's like Ellie's immunity.
Dude, the mom Ellie got bit when giving birth to the little Ellie, so that actually...
It doesn't matter how we got here. What matters is that we're here and given a choice, a moral dilemma. Ellie or a cure. And trying to use technical details and semantics like the definition of vaccine as shortcuts to find a definitive answer actively cheapens what makes this ending so special. Yeah, so not many people will tell you this, but I'm willing to be the brave soul who will. Last of Us is a good game, dude. It's so good because it's practically two stories, because the ending that last little okay and cut to black tells us exactly where the next game is going. It is a masterclass in storytelling and character writing, and I do think it is a must play, as even if you play a narrative action game and don't like the genre, this should be the game you test the waters with. I'm giving The Last of Us Part 1 a 10 out of 10 score. Not because it's perfect, but because it's a masterpiece, and I just can't find any excuse to not give this game a 10 out of 10. Ah, damn it.